चलो एक give me 1 minute. So there were few doubts. Now, especially question number 5, I did not, while solving, I did not see simple rate of interest. I used compound rate of interest. So that was my mistake. Okay, so the answer that I gave here is wrong. So just not this one, question number 5. This one is wrong. Just intuitively, we will have 1.15 into 1000. That would be 11500. Okay, that is how we'll be getting. So we'll have 1 plus 3 into 0.05. Okay, so question number 5 solution may was wrong. Other than that, I think all other questions were correct. So let's see, are there any doubts? Why do we multiply the accumulation and not add them? I will talk about that in a minute. Okay, let's see other. Why do we divide this to find this in the last question? Okay, so now see, we always say that our future value or our accumulated value is equals to present value into accumulation factor. So to find accumulation factor, we'll be dividing our future value by our present value. Okay, so that is why I think somebody answered that in the chat as well. Okay, good. So we add 1 to give us the total amount. In compound interest question 1 and 2, why did we subtract 1? Now see, when we talk about this 1 plus I raised to n, this gives us total amount. This is not interest. Here we only wanted the compound interest. So this was the total amount. This was a future value. So if I invest 100 rupees and I get 110 rupees, 110 rupees becomes my total amount. Whereas the interest that I got was only 10 rupees. So we wanted to find only compound interest. That is why we subtracted by 1. That means we are subtracting by our principal value. Because in the question, they were talking only about the compound interest. Even here, we use this compound interest formula, and that ways we got the difference between our simple interest and compound interest. And we know our compound interest will always be more than our simple interest when we are talking about a time that is greater than 1 year. In the second question, we had 2 years. So we knew compound interest would be greater than our simple interest. Question number 4, due principle of consistency, answer is same. In question number 4, principle of consistency, due to principle of consistency, answer is same. Yes. So answer, final answer must be same. At the end of 3 years, the investment has been this much. Okay, either we go directly from 0 to 6, or we go from 0 to 3 and then 3 to 6. Due to our principle of consistency, we should get the answer same. Does not mean that in practical life you will always have the same answer. This is theoretical. Okay, because we will always say everybody will be investing in the same thing. Why would they invest in the same thing? Because if I am giving you 5% rate of interest and my partner is giving you 10% rate of interest, why would you invest in me, right? You will always invest in the second person because it's giving you more rate of interest. In practical life, we have so many different factors. maybe that 10% of rate of interest will not be given to everyone, will only be given to select people. Okay, or maybe there is more risk factor involved when the person is giving you 10%. So I'm guaranteed to give you 5%, like government is guaranteed to give you your money back, especially the banks that we talk about. Let's say now in recent news you might have heard about a few banks that shut down because of their internal problems. Now that happens very less when we talk about nationalized banks, as well as the money that is invested in nationalized bank, that we keep in nationalized banks, that is handled by the government. So if there is some problem, government will help them out and will not let them shut down. But privatized banks or even the cooperative banks, so you might have heard about I think what was that, Punjab Maharashtra Cooperative Bank, I think PMC, right? Punjab Maharashtra Cooperative Bank, that went bankrupt a few months back. Now that was because it was a cooperative bank and there are less regulations on cooperative banks. So they give you more interest to attract you, but there is more risk of them shutting down. Whereas the nationalized banks like SBI, like ICICI, HDFC, these are nationalized banks. They work under the guidance of Reserve Bank of India. They have more strict rules to follow, so they cannot just provide you a lot of rate of interest, because risk is also less. They have to keep a lot of money with RBI, so that by any chance they defraud or they have some problem, RBI has a lot of reserve of money to basically give it to the people that are affected by it. Okay, so therefore in actual life there is a risk factor. In theoretical life we are not going to consider a risk factor. That is why we assume that everybody is invested at the same rate of interest. Okay, so if somebody is giving you 10% rate of interest, everybody is going to go for the 10% of rate of interest. Okay, nobody is going to take 9% or nobody is going to take 8%. Okay, that is the concept, and that is why we'll have principle of consistency, that in 5 years if somebody is giving you 500 rupees as interest and somebody else is giving you only 300, you will go for 500, you will not go for 300, right? That is the concept of our principle of consistency. So if even if I say I will give you money in 2 years, and then if you want you can reinvest for 3 more years, if you do that, in the end I should get the same returns in the 5 years or 6 years that we had question here. So yes, it is principle of consistency. So I think homework is clear now. I know this is a little bit confusing, especially I made these questions to be confusing, question 1 and question 2. That was just so that we understand the concept of difference between interest and difference between amount that we are going to get. So when we talk about future value, present value, we are not talking about interest, we are talking about principal plus interest. We are talking about amounts. And when we talk about just interest, then we are talking about simple interest or compound interest that are mentioned here. So I'll get back to our teaching. So let's get back to our teaching, and now we have studied our rate of interest. Now, okay, one more thing, why did we multiply accumulation factors? Now let's say even if we are talking about simple interest, in simple interest, if I invest for 10 years, okay, from time 0 to time 10, we say that we are going to get 1 plus I into 10. This would be our returns, principal into 1 plus I into 10. So if I invest for only 5 years and then I reinvest for 5 years, logically this should translate into P into 1 plus 5 into I plus P into 1 plus, or I will say just plus 5 into I, right? I should be adding my values. But imagine if you get two opportunities. You get invest for 10 years directly, or invest for 5 years and then reinvest for 5 years. So when I say reinvest for 5 years, let's say when you invested for 5 years, you invested rupees 100 and you got 150 back. So when you reinvest, you will be reinvesting this whole 150. That would be principal plus interest. You will not just invest 100 rupees and keep the 50 for yourself. So we are talking about reinvesting. That means you will be taking out the money and reinvesting with interest. So that is why next time you will get interest on this 50 rupees as well. Or if I say that I will give me 150 rupees and I will only give you interest on 100 rupees, that will not work, right? So that is why when we talk about reinvesting, when we have multiple accumulation factors, we'll be always multiplying it. So that is why accumulation factors are multiplied to get our future values. Now sometimes we need to find our present values. Sometimes we know future values and we need to find our present value. I'll give you a simple example. Let's say that I'm running a factory. In 5 years I will have to buy another equipment, or I will have to replace my machinery. So for that, let's say I need 1 lakh rupees in 5 years time. I know that the machinery is of 1 lakh rupees. So I need to buy this machinery for 1 lakh rupees. For that, how much should I invest today? Okay, how much should I invest today so that in 5 years time I will get 1 lakh rupees? So I need to know today's value. I need to know present value. Now that is called as discounting. Now it is the same concept as the discounting that we find in sale. What we are doing is we are reducing the value. Discounting just means reducing the value. So here we are discounting with time. So we are going to say we need to find present value when we know the future value. So we know future value is equals to present value into, I will say, accumulation factor. So I will divide by the accumulation factor. Now because as we talked about before, that these concepts were built when people did not have calculators. So it was difficult to basically discount by dividing. So we made another factor, that is Vn. This is called as our discounting factor. And our discounting factor, we only write one single value from the time that we are coming from, and we assume we are always going to time 0. That is not always going to be the case, but that is our assumption. So the factor is written in such a way that we will always go to time 0. When we are not going to 0, we will not write this Vn. Now, when we have different rates, we'll talk about later on. We have a lot of chapters to go through. Okay, we will have when we have rate is increasing, when we have rate is decreasing, when it is fluctuating, whatever, everything will be considered. Okay, so don't worry, we will have cases where we have different rates, increasing rate, decreasing rate, everything. Okay, right now we are assuming same rate of interest. So we are talking about discounting rate. That would be nothing. Discounting factor will be nothing but 1 upon our accumulation factor. Okay, so this becomes our discounting factor. With that, we also introduce something called as rate of discount. Similar to rate of interest, we have something called as rate of discount. It is rate, so it is again represented in percentage. And we say our discounting factor Vn will be equal to 1 minus d raised to n for compound discount, and will be equal to 1 minus n times d for simple discount. Okay, I'll give you a basic example where this is used. What happens is there are some bonds are nothing but where you invest money and after n number of years you get the money back. So let's say we are talking about some government bonds that go for 6 months only. So what they do is they give you a rate of discount. So they will say it is a 6 months bond with rate of discount of 5%. So how much would you invest? How much would you pay for how much money? They have just said two things. We have a 6 months bond at 5% rate of discount. What does that actually mean? They are saying for 6 months they are giving you a discounting factor of the discounting factor rate of discount of 5%. Okay, so that means if you invest 100 rupees, your discounting would be 100. If you want 100 rupees in the future, your discounting would be 1 minus 0.05. That would be nothing but 95 rupees. So today you will be investing 95 rupees to get 100 rupees in 6 months time. So you can do that very easily in your head. If I say for 3 months, there is a 3 months bond that will give you 3%. So how much would you invest to get 100 rupees in 3 months? So we'll be investing 97 rupees. It's so much easier. If I say we have 4-year bond and the discounting is 12%. So we know that I should invest 88 rupees today to get 100 rupees in 4 years. So it becomes so much easier for us to calculate, and you can just multiply. If you want 500 rupees, you can just multiply this to 5 and you will get how much you will be investing. So that is why the rate of discount was introduced, at least the simple rate of discount. But of course compound is already difficult to calculate, but we use that a lot. So this was the reason rate of discount was introduced, and that is how we use our rate of discount. But we'll be using it for all types of calculation. First of all, we'll find our relationships. We know our accumulation factor is nothing but 1 plus I raised to n, and our discounting factors are 1 minus d raised to n. So our 1 plus I raised to n must be equal to 1 upon 1 minus d raised to n. We do not compare our simple discounts. Why? I will show you here. Okay, so first of all we'll find this. So we'll say n will cancel out and we'll have 1 plus I is equals to 1 by 1 minus d. I can write this as I is equals to 1 upon 1 minus d minus 1. That will give you d upon 1 minus d. This becomes our formula. And similarly, I can reciprocate this and I will get 1 minus d is equals to 1 upon 1 plus I. I will get d is equals to 1 minus of 1 upon 1 plus I, and that will give us d is equals to I upon 1 plus I. This is for compound. If I calculate for simple, I will have 1 plus n times I is equals to 1 upon 1 minus n times d. We'll say n times I will be equal to 1 upon 1 minus n times d minus 1. This becomes nd upon 1 minus nd will be n times I, or our I will be equal to d upon 1 minus nd. Now here our I, value of I, is dependent on d as well as n. So this will be true. One conversion will be true only for one particular value of n. So this is not consistent throughout our time period. So for the same D for 2 years, 3 years and 5 years, I will have different I's. So that is why we do not use conversion from I to D, D to I as a formula for simple rate of interest. So we will not be making a formula. If we want to convert, we will be using this accumulation factor and discounting factor. Then we also know that our present value is equals to future value into discounting factor Vn. So that ways I can make the formula my present value will be equal to future value into 1 minus d raised to n for compound, and future value into 1 minus n times d for simple. Okay, compound discount and our simple discount. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Okay, I'll just take an example till that opens and stuff. Okay, I will take an example. Let's say I'm investing uh, in a bank that is giving me rate of discount, annual rate of discount as 5%. How much should we invest if we want rupees 1000 in 5 years time? Can you find that? Assuming first D is simple discount, and second compound discount. So first we'll talk about simple discount, and then we'll talk about compound discount. So we need to find present value. We have our formulas. We'll say present value will be equal to our future value, that would be 1000, 1 minus n times D. Calculate this, and then here we'll have 1 minus d raised to 5. Calculate both of them. So how much is our answer? Simple is 750 and simple is 750 and compound is 773.78 78093. Okay. So what we are getting here is, in simple discount we have to invest a little bit less than in compound discount. Why is that? Because in compound discount we are getting discounting on the discounted values. So that means for the first year, if 5% discount के हिसाब से, ठीक है, I'll talk about 5 years. This is our simple, and here we'll talk about compound. So if I was talking about that I want 1000 rupees at time 5, now first we will be discounting, let's say at time 4. For simple we are saying 5% discount for 1 year, that would be 50 rupees. So we'll have 950, then 50 rupees again, because for simple it will always be on the principal amount, always be on the same value. So again 50 rupees discounted, so I'll have 900, then 850, then 800, and then I will have 750. So I need to invest 750 such that I will get 1000 rupees in 5 years. When we talk about compound, we'll say in the first year we'll have the exact same discounting, that would be 950, but then I will have 5% discount on 950, not on 1000. So next year I'll be saying it will be 950 into, I'll have 1 minus 0.05, that would be 902.5. Then next year I will have discounting of 5% on this 902.5. So I'll say this into, let's say 0.95, that would be 857.375. We'll have 814.50. We are getting 773.78093, right? So why is that? Because we are discounting on discounted values. So that is why while we are discounting for the same rate of discount, our present value of compound discount would be more than the present value of simple discount. If we are talking about more than 1 year, will definitely be different for less than 1 year, opposite. So you can directly say this is nothing but, if you want to find this to this, we'll have 1000 into 1 minus 0.05 bracket close raised to 5. Now we'll do this sum. So we have given an investment of 1000. Calculate the accumulation after 5 years using, now we have, see, we have 3 different things. We have simple discount of 8%, we have compound discount of 8%, and we have compound interest of 8%. So we'll say our future value is 1000, and we need to find, no, we need to find future value, we need to find accumulation. Okay, we need to find accumulation. Our present value is 1000, n is equals to 5. For the A, we have D is equals to 8%, but this is simple discount. For simple discount, we'll say our present value must be equal to future value into 1 minus 5 times D, right? So even using discount rate, we can find our future value. We will say our future value must be equal to our present value, that is 1000, divided by 1 minus 5 times 0.08, that is 0.4.6. 1000 divided by 1 minus 5 into 0.08. Now, whenever I'm doing something in the calculator and by any chance there is something new or you did not understand what I did in the calculator, just ask me. Just type calculator and I will understand that you, whatever I just did, you might not have understood what I did. So I will explain again, okay? Because many people, this calculator might be very new, scientific calculator. So if you do not know what I'm using, just type calculator and I'll explain. So this was how much we had. Future value 1666.67. Then B, D is equals to 8%, but this is compound. Should write simple for our own understanding. So same thing, we'll have future value will be equal to present value divided by 1 minus D raised to N. We'll have 1000 by 1.08 raised to 5. Sorry, 1 minus 0.08. As soon as I saw that my future value is less than present value, I knew that I made a mistake. So if we keep those things in mind, we may avoid few mistakes. Yeah, I do a lot of mistakes. You should learn from them because I did not. Okay. So I'm getting 1517.26298. So the answer might be in fraction. Just press this SD button that is above del. Okay, if you press that SD button, it goes from fraction to decimal. Okay, SD button just above delete button. Now C part, they're talking about compound interest. So our I is equals to 8%. So we know that our future value will just be present value into 1 plus I raised to N. The present value was 1000. We'll just have 1000 into, now here 1.08 raised to 5. Because in rate of interest we add, rate of discount we subtract from 1. 14, 69. We have 1469.328. Now here we saw a relationship between our simple discount and our compound discount in the previous one. Okay, while finding present value. Here while finding our future value. So for simple discount we get more future value than for compound discount, that we know. Okay, that is very logical. We found present value in the opposite way, so future value will be in this manner. Okay, but if you look at the rate of interest, for the same rate of interest, we are getting lesser future value. So this is just observation. Okay, if you go too much into it, you might get confused. So let's not go too much into it. Okay. So, but what we can do is we can convert how much will be the rate of discount. So we know our formula, our D is equals to I upon 1 plus I. We just calculated that for compound only. We'll not do that for simple. So here we'll have 0.08 by 1.08. And if I represent that in percentage, it becomes 7.4074%. So if I want the same cash flow, that means for the same present value, if I want to get the same future value, either I will be using rate of interest as 8% or I'll be using discount rate as 7.4074%. These are called as equivalent rates. Okay, these are called as equivalent rates. They are not equal. Why are they not equal? Because this is 8%, this is 7.4%. So definitely they are not equal. But they are called as equivalent rates because they give us the same cash flow. I can convert one into the other and use the other and I will get the same answers. Same thing I can do. I can find equivalent rate here. Get I is equals to D upon 1 minus D. Okay. So I will say 0.08 by 1 minus 0.08, and we are getting 8.6956 percentage. We have 8.6956 percentage. So again, what is equivalent rate? We are saying that for the same, for these two rate of interest, we should get the same cash flow. So our cash flow is what? If I invest this much present value, the investment was 1000 rupees, I should get the same future value. So I'll do that for 8.6956%. This is our rate of interest here. If I take 1000 rupees and multiply our 1 plus 0.086956 bracket close raised to 5. If I do the same calculation, you will get the same answer. The slight difference is because of the decimal points that we have taken. So I can convert my D into I and still find the answer and get the same answer. So this is going to be called as equivalent rates. That means they are not equal, but they give us the same cash flows, same future value, same present value, whatever we were trying to calculate. Even if we use the other one, that is called as equivalent rates. So for our calculator, whenever you have a fraction, if you press SD, it gives you a decimal, or if you have decimal, if you press SD, it gives you a fraction. Sometimes it does not give us a fraction because in our computer, it might be giving us such big fractions, but in our actual calculator, it might not give us such big fractions. So sometimes it does not convert it into fraction if it is a very big fraction. But if it is a fraction, if you press this SD button, it will definitely convert it into decimal. So this was nothing but our concept of discounting. Is there any problem in understanding? Then we talked about discounting factor. And we talked about rate of discount. We'll have a lot of different rates. So we'll have to follow slowly, okay? Now, there is something called as discounting factor for 1 year, we write it as small v. Okay, small v is written as discounting factor for 1 year. Now that is mainly because for our convenience of writing, we'll be using the small v a lot later. That is why we took it as one single symbol. So small v is nothing but equal to 1 minus d. Okay. Or you can say capital V 1, discounting for 1 year. Okay. So whenever we use 1 minus d raised to n, we can write it as v raised to n. This is just for writing purposes, nothing else. So that we don't need to write 1 minus d raised to n. Also, whenever we need to write 1 by 1 plus I raised to n, okay, we can use v raised to n. It's just symbol just for writing purposes. We'll be using that a lot later on. D is equals to I upon 1 plus I should be valid for n is equals to 1, right? Yes. So for compound interest, it will be true for any time period, greater than 1, less than 1, and equal to 1 as well. But it will not be true for simple rate of interest. Okay, so simple interest for different n's, we will have different conversion of d into I. That is why we will not be converting d into I generally for simple interest. For a specific question, they might ask you to do that. Okay. So while we were converting for compound interest, n cancelled out. Okay. So yeah, here we are saying we are taking nth root here and nth root here, and n cancelled out. That is why we got this. This was not for n is equals to 1. Okay. Let's some people I think are having problem in joining and leaving. Okay, we'll continue. In actuality, this chapter is over. The chapter that I teach anyways, there's one more concept left that we call effective rate of interest. Yeah, we have effective rate of interest. We'll talk about effective. And what we were learning was nothing but effective rate of interest, the I that we were talking about. Now let's see the definition. Now effective rate are compound rates that have interest paid once per unit time, either at the end of the period, that would be effective interest, or at the beginning of the period, that would be effective discount. This distinguishes them from the nominal rate. Nominal rate we'll study in the next chapter. Okay, so what is that I'll explain in a minute. Okay. So first we'll write a basic definition of effective rate of interest. We say amount of interest earned earned ki spelling, please don't believe me on my spelling, I always get it wrong. Earned is EAR. Okay, okay. EARNED, earned. Amount of interest earned at the end of the time period. Then comma, once every time period. comma, represented as proportion of initial amount invested is known as effective rate of interest. First of all, it is amount of interest earned divided by the initial amount invested. That is very much clear. But we say that it should be, first of all, once every time period. If it is earned more than once a time period, then we will not call it as effective. That becomes nominal. That is part of our next chapter, not part of our this chapter. Okay. So if we say that I have earned interest once every month, that becomes effective rate of interest per month. So I can say I have effective rate of interest per month as 1%. I can have 1% effective rate of interest per month. This will not be same as 12% per annum. This will not be same as 12% per annum. Okay. So we'll talk about that. Why, how, we'll talk about that later on. So we can have effective effective rate of interest. Effective rate of interest is that it is only earned once every time period. Okay. When we talk about interest, we say it is earned at the end of the time period. Now our default time period is 1 year. That is what we were studying. Okay. So now we'll talk about effective rate of discount. What I will do is I will select the same thing. I will copy and I'll paste it down here, and first of all I'll remove this. Okay, now there's a reason I have just pasted it down here, because there's a small change. What is that change? So what we are saying is amount of interest earned at the, here we'll have beginning, instead of end, we'll be earning the interest at the beginning of the time period, once every time period, represented as a proportion of, instead of initial, we will have final amount earned. I'll talk about both of these things. So let's say that I'm giving you a loan of 100 rupees because you needed 100 rupees. I say that you will give me interest. So interest of 10 rupees per 100 rupees. Okay, you will giving me interest 10 rupees. So after time 1, you will be giving me 110 rupees back. So you will be returning me 110 rupees. So when we talk about rate of interest, we say interest earned, that was 10 rupees, divided by our initial amount, that was 100. That became our 10%. Now this interest was paid at the end of the year. So that was effective rate of interest, and I charged you that interest only once. So that was okay. Now I'll give you another scenario. I'll say you want 100 rupees from me, but I say that I want interest right now. So you will say, okay, I want 100 rupees, you want 10 rupees as interest right now. So give me a loan of 110 rupees. So I gave you a loan of 110 rupees. Jisme se I subtracted the interest of 10 rupees and I gave you 100 rupees. I gave you 100 rupees. How much would you return at the end of 1 year? How much would you return at the end of 1 year? Would you return 110 or would you return 100? You would return 110 rupees. Why? Because interest was given at the beginning of the year. Interest was given at the beginning. So some people might say, why not 100 then? Because actual loan was of 110 rupees. I gave you a loan of 110 rupees. So you will return me 110 rupees because I took the interest at the beginning. Now this is just conceptual. Now if I just remove this, can you see a difference between these two? Is there a difference between these two? Not at all. The cash flow is exactly same. You got 100 rupees at time 0 and you returned 110 rupees at time 1. So in actuality, even though I said that give me 10 rupees as interest right now, in actuality, there was no interest paid at the beginning. In actuality, the extra money was given at the end only. Right? So there is no difference between the cash flow. That is why these are equivalent rates. And our D would be 10 rupees charged upon the final amount. Final amount was 110 rupees. So this becomes nothing but 9.0909%. So these two are equivalent rates because the cash flow is exactly same. 100 rupees at time 0, 110 rupees at time 1. This is exactly same. But the concept is that we earn this interest at the beginning of the year. It's just conceptual. In actuality, no extra money was paid at the beginning of the year. You received 100 rupees, you gave 110 rupees. But these two become equivalent rates. You can do that. You can find D by using I upon 1 plus I, where I is 10%. We are getting this 9.0909%. Right? So these are called as equivalent rates. Now we also say D is nothing but rate of interest discounted for 1 year. This is again a conceptual thing. D is nothing but rate of interest discounted for 1 year. Why? Because in rate of interest, we were charging interest at the end of the year, and in rate of discount, we were charging interest at the beginning of the year. So for using mathematics, we can also say D is equals to IV multiplied by discounting factor of 1 year. And we know V is nothing but 1 minus D, that is equals to 1 upon 1 plus I. So I can replace this 1 upon 1 plus I with V here, and I'll get D is equals to IV. So this is again a conceptual thing and also a mathematical thing. We can prove it mathematically and we can prove it conceptually. So you don't have to worry too much about this, but I'll explain it again. So here what we said was, give me 100 rupees and I'll give you 100 rupees if you pay me 10 rupees as interest. Just pay me the interest at the end of the year. So every 100 rupees I'm charging you 10 rupees as interest. That's the simple concept. So interest rate becomes 10 upon 100. Here I'm saying on every 100 rupees that I will give you, that you will receive from me. Okay, so every 100 rupees that I give you, or we'll call it as you will receive from me, I will charge you 10 rupees as interest, but you will give me that 10 rupees at the beginning of the year. So as soon as you get 100 rupees, you will give me 10 rupees per 100 rupees that you received. But you would say, if I give you 10 rupees here, I will only receive 90 rupees. So I did not receive 100 rupees. So to receive 100 rupees, you will have to take a loan of 110 rupees. So you took a loan of 110 rupees. You gave the 10 rupees interest at the beginning, and that is why you received 100 rupees. Okay. And because you have already paid me the interest, you don't have to pay the interest at the end. But the loan was of 110, so you will repay the full loan without any interest. So the loan was 110. So in actuality, there is no change in our physical money that has been exchanged. For 100 rupees, you gave me 110 rupees here, and for 100 rupees, you gave me 110 rupees here. So in both of them, I am getting the same cash flow. Just the difference is in the concept. Here I said 10 rupees was received at the beginning. Here I am saying 10 rupees was received at the end of the year. So that is just a conceptual change. But sometimes what they do is, just for confusing, they will say 3 rupees as charged as interest for every 100 rupees at the beginning of the year. And then they go on, because we say 3 per 100 becomes 3%, and we say, okay, 3% every year becomes our I. But in actuality, because they use the word beginning of the year, that should be D. Just for confusion, they would do these things. So other than that, we don't require this concept. Okay, but it is good to understand. So this becomes our concept of effective rate of interest and effective rate of discount. This ends this chapter here. So I have shared this book with you all. You can start doing the question. Always what you can do is, whenever a concept is written, after that they will always give you a question. Start doing those questions. It's just practice, and it gives us easier way of calculation. So we'll see this question. An investor's bank balance varies at various time is as follows: 1st January, 1st July, and 1st January. So we can say this is half yearly basis. So if we assume 1st January 2017 to be 0, I will say this would be half a year, and this would be 1 year. So I will have 3,000, 3,100, and 3,300. Now effective 6 monthly rate between 1st January 2017 and 1st July 2017. So we want effective rate of interest per 6 months. Okay, 6 monthly rate. So effective means we'll be paying interest only once every 6 months. So that means our we'll not write it as I, because I by default means per annum. So we will write it as I dash for now. Okay, we'll be using I dash. So I will say my future value is 3,100. My present value is 3,000, and I need my my present value into my accumulation factor must be equal to my future value. Okay. That is clear. So our accumulation factor, we'll just find our accumulation factor. Okay, becomes future value by present value. Now remember that we say we have 1 plus I raised to n as our compound interest. Now here we said that we will write n in years, and that is why our I will be in per year, per annum basis. So whenever I write this as 1 plus I dash, if I is in per 6 months, then my n here will be number of 6 months. Okay, because we are talking about effective rate of interest per 6 months. So n will be number of 6 months, not number of years. That ways I will have 3,100 by 3,000 is equals to 1 plus I dash raised to 1. In half a year, I will have 6 months. Or you can say number of half years. We'll have 3100 by 3000 minus 1. So our I dash is equals to 3.3333%. In the second part, effective annual rate between 1st January 2017 and 1st January 2018. So the annual rate, we'll have our 3,300 as our future value divided by 3,000 invested at time 0 will be 1 plus I. This is our annual raised to 1 year because 1 year has passed. So that ways we'll have 3,300 so 1.1, so I'll subtract 1, so I'm getting 10% rate of interest. So this 10% rate of interest is per annum. This is 10% I'm charging you per annum, and this is 3%, 3.33% I'm charging you per 6 months. Every 6 months you are getting 3.33%, and every year you are getting 10%. Now that means it is not a consistent rate of interest. Why? If I'm getting 3.33% 6 months, in 1 year that will be around 7%. It will not directly become 10%, right? So it is not exactly twice, but it will be around that twice value. So I can find annual rate of interest for this 6 months, and I can find 6 monthly rate of interest for this 1 year as well. If I assume these to be totally different transactions, let's assume that I invested 3,000 rupees in 6 months. In 6 months, I received 3,100 rupees, and I invested another 3,000 rupees in somewhere else, and in 1 year, I got 3,300 rupees. These were two different investments. So how much return did I earn? So in 6 months basis, I earned 3.33% rate of interest here. And in this second one, I have received 10% per annum. But if I need to compare them, I cannot compare 6 months and per annum. So what I will do is I will find per annum basis pay this, as well as 6 month basis pay this. Okay. So I will say again, my present value into accumulation factor 0 to half will be equal to my future value. So that ways our accumulation factor was 3,100 divided by 3,000. Now in half year, if I'm calculating rate of interest according to per annum basis, this is what I will just write this as 1, and this was our 2. First ke liye, and this was for our 2. So our I in terms of 1 year, but how many years have passed in 6 months? So only half a year has passed in 6 months. So raised to half. This now becomes in years, right? N now becomes in years because our I is in years. Per annum basis pe hai. So that is why the N becomes in number of years. So that ways my I1 will be equal to, we'll have 3,100, 3,000, and then I will have to take root. So I'll take root and then I'll press answer. So it will take the previous answer. It gives me sorry, not root. It will go and become square, right? So I will have 3,100 divided by 3,000 equal to, and then I will square it. So I'm getting I1 is equals to 6.7778%. You can see that. Okay. Whereas if I convert my second one, I will say my accumulation factor 0 to 1 was equal to my 3300 divided by 3000. So how many half years has passed in 1 year time? So we have 2 half years that have passed in 1 year's time. That is why I will have 1 plus I dash 2 whole square. I have 2 half years being passed in 1 year's time. So this is number of half years. Okay, because this is per half year basis. So if I is per half year basis, then our so if our I is per half year basis, then our n, that is number n here, must also be number of half years. That becomes 3300 by 3000. Now some of you might have joined very late. Don't worry about it. I'm recording this lecture and I will be sharing it within half hour or so when we end this lecture. Okay, so if you feel like you did not attend the starting part or somehow got disconnected in the middle, don't worry about it. Okay, I'll be sharing the whole lecture. So that ways my I dash 2 will be my 3300 by 3000. I will take root answer, and my I dash 2 is becoming 4.88%, 4.881% per 6 months. So these are effective rate of interest. So if I am getting interest only every 6 months, so I will get according to this rate of interest. But in 1 year, that becomes this much. Okay, in 1 year, that becomes this much. That is 3300. Okay. So if it is very confusing here, don't worry. Next chapter is all about this thing. So I will explain with more examples and with more concepts, and you will understand better. But you have to understand that when I am talking about my 6 monthly rate of interest, like 10% per annum, this 10% per annum, where was my 10% per annum? I2. My 10% per annum, according to half yearly, it becomes 4.881%. Why? We will see that in the next chapter. Okay, so don't have to worry too much about it. And my 3.33% per 6 months becomes 6.778% per annum. Okay. Why is it not exactly double? Because this is equivalent rates. These will give you the same answer, does not mean they will be the same value. Okay, if they are equal, they will not give you the same answer because there is compound interest. I will talk about that. That is part of our next chapter. So we'll see that. Okay, and I'll give you homework before we go to our next chapter. And that homework would be this chapter 4 practice questions. So chapter 4 practice questions, you can solve all these questions. So question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4 and question 5. There are more, but solve okay, there are only 6 questions, so solve all 6 questions. Yes, there will be a class tomorrow. Tomorrow's class is going to be morning 8:15 a.m. to 10. Okay, we usually go to 9:45. Okay, not 10, but okay. Usually we have 1.5 hour class on Sunday. So morning 8:15 to 9:45, you can assume. Okay, so all 6 of these questions are homework. I'm not expecting you to do it right now and come up with doubts tomorrow. I'll give you more questions tomorrow as homework, and throughout the week you can do those questions. I will be giving you more questions even after that. Okay, so when you join the classroom app, you will find that I have posted assignments. I will be giving you homework from those assignments as well. Okay. So all of these questions are homework. If somebody do not have this book, that was our CM1 book that I shared in our WhatsApp group, by any chance don't worry, I will be sharing it again after this class. Okay, you will find it in our WhatsApp group. Is there anybody who is not in our WhatsApp group? Just message me. I will type my phone number here. Okay. That's my phone number. Just WhatsApp me. I will add you to the group. Okay. So our 5th chapter is called interest rates. Next chapter, 5th chapter, that is our interest rates. Here, not necessarily we will always give we'll always give interest every year. Sometimes we have to give interest multiple times a year. Why would we give interest multiple times a year? Now, one of the places where we get interest multiple times a year is banks. If you see your bank passbook or something, you will find that almost exactly in 3 months they will give you interest. So you will get interest on whatever amount was kept in your account every 3 months. But whenever you see any ad for a bank, or whenever you go to a bank and ask how much rate are they giving you, they will always give you a number in per annum basis. So they will say 6% per annum, or they will say 3% per annum, or they will say 4% per annum, whatever. They will always give you a rate of interest in per annum basis. And if they are mathematically correct, they will say that the interest would be paid every 3 months. So they will give you a rate of interest in per annum basis, but they will tell you that the interest would be paid every 3 months. Okay, so this is not I. So let's take an example. If I say I is equals to 12% per annum, in 3 months I have four such 3 months. 3 months is nothing but a quarter. Now, okay, why does bank pay you interest every 3 months? Now, if you know that we pay taxes, the income tax is paid at a different time than the company tax or GSTs and everything else. So companies pays taxes at a different time than the individual pays taxes. That is for the government to be able to maintain records and do all the analysis, whatever they need to do. Okay, and make sure that everybody is paying tax. So for management purposes, they have kept income tax and GST or other service taxes and other things that the company pays. Companies taxes are paid at a different time than an individual's taxes. Okay, that is mainly because of the management reasons, but that is almost 6 months apart. Plus banks have to do their own calculations. So if you are paying your taxes in July and companies are paying in December, in both of this time, interest is nothing but your income. So whatever bank is paying you as an interest, you have to treat it as your income and add it in your income tax. Okay, so you have to add whatever interest you're getting from the bank. So bank have to release how much interest have they paid for that much time period. So in up to July, how much interest has been paid? Up to December, how much interest has have been paid? So they felt that quarterly interest was the best way of calculation, because at this point of time, again they will be releasing how much interest was paid, and at this point in time also they will be releasing how much interest was paid. So they prefer giving us interest quarterly, that is 3 months, in every 3 months. So if I say interest rate was 12% per annum, I am saying at time 0 to time 1, if I invest 100 rupees, I should get 112 rupees. But when I say, 1 minute, if we get more income in form of interest and pay more as income tax, what profit do we have in this? Now see, your income tax will be percentage of your income. So let's say that I'm saying you are paying 30% tax and you are getting 12% as income. So 12% के ऊपर 30% लगेगा. So that will be, you will be paying tax only on the 12 rupees that you got. So 12 rupees was your interest, not the whole 112 rupees. Okay. So you will be paying taxes on this 12 rupees. 30% of 12 rupees, whatever might be, that would be your tax. So they will not charge you more. If they are charging you more than what you are earning, that will be called as more than 100% taxation. Okay, that happens sometimes in very poor countries in recession times, and so you would prefer not to earn money than to earn money there, right? Because you will be paying more taxes than you are earning money. That happens sometimes. Okay, when the government is very desperate. So so if you have 12% rate of interest in 1 year, you will get 112 rupees. But what if I'm giving you interest more than once a year, let's say every quarter? So this would be my 3 by 12, this would be my 6 by 12, and we'll have 9 by 12, and I will have 12 by 12, that is 1. So I'm saying I am giving you interest 4 times a year, so I can convert this. My I dash will be becoming 3% per annum. I've just divided my 12% by 3. If I invest 100 rupees in 3 months time, not per annum, I'm saying per quarter. Okay, so just divided it by 4. So in 3 months time, this is just 1 quarter. Okay, 3 by 12 is just 1 quarter. This is 2 quarter, this is 3rd quarter, and this is 4th quarter. In 1 quarter, how much would be the interest that we'll get? So we'll say it becomes 103 rupees. Now because we are paying compound interest, in the next quarter I'll be taking this 103 rupees. I'll be paying interest on that 3 rupees as well. So I'll say 103 into, I will have 1 plus 0.03, 3%. That becomes 106.09. We'll have 106.09. And in the next quarter, I will be paying interest on 106.09 into 1.03, and we'll get 109.2727. We'll have 109.2727. And lastly, this will be into 1.03, and finally I'm getting 112.55 rupees. So 3% rate of interest, 3% per quarter, is giving me 112 rupees in an year, 112.55. It is more than this 112 rupees. So if I say I'm giving you 12.55 as interest in a year. Now forget about you checking when the bank is giving you interest. If you see after 1 year, you will say I got 112.55. So you'll say 12.55% in 1 year. So I'm saying 12.55% per annum. This must be my equivalent rate. Clearly this is not equal to this. Why is that? Because on the interest that I've got, I am getting more interest in a year. So I'm compounding interest more than once a year. That is why I am getting more interest at the end of the year. Now this concept is called as nominal rate of interest. Now obviously I can tell you that the interest rate is 12.55. If bank says that the interest rate is 12.55, you will say in 3 months, and they said that they will give you interest every 3 months. So you will say 12.55 in a year divided by 3, I should get 4.18 rupees every, sorry, divided by 4. So 12.55 divided by 4, I should get 3.137 rupees. But in the first 3 months, you only got 3 rupees as interest. You will say that the bank is cheating. Now, how does the bank then make you understand if you don't understand compound interest? There are so many people who would not understand compound interest. So it becomes very difficult for the bank to say, I'm giving you 12.55%, but convertible every 3 months. That turns into 3% per quarter. So if you are seeing every 3 months, you should see that you should get 3 rupees. But if you see yearly, then you should get 12.55 rupees. If by chance you see in 6 months you will get 6.09 rupees. If you see in 9 months you will get 9.27 rupees. The person who does not understand compound interest will not be able to follow this, why there are so many different rates. Okay, so for the sake of simplification, the bank will only say that the rate of interest is 12% and we are giving you interest every quarter. Now that simplified rate of interest is called as nominal rate of interest. So in actuality, I will not be paying you nominal rate of interest. I will be paying you effective rate of interest only. But nominal rate of interest is represented as IP. So 3% per quarter becomes nominal rate of interest as 12% per annum, but convertible quarterly. So we represent how many times are we converting in a year with this P. Okay, so IP, we will not call it as I raised to P. We will not write it as I raised to 4 because this is I raised to 4. I multiplied 4 times. But this is I payable 4 times in a year. Rate of interest payable 4 times in a year. So IP will always be written as rate of interest payable this many times in a year. So we say this is nothing but nominal rate of interest per annum. So always represented in per annum basis. So I should, even if I don't write per annum, that is okay. Okay, because it will always be in per annum basis. And we say either it is convertible, payable, or compounded. These are the 3 terms that are used. Okay, we'll say P times a year. This is how we write it. And even if they do not use the word nominal, we understand by this convertible, payable, or compounded, P times a year. That is what a nominal rate of interest will be written as. Now, from here, we will not be using simple rate of interest at all. So simple rate of interest is complete. We will not be talking about simple rate of interest when we talk about nominal rate of interest. This is only compound rate of interest. Okay. Then this 3% per quarter was an effective rate of interest. Okay, this 3% per quarter was IP by P. This was effective rate of interest we say per 1 by p year. So per quarter, that was an effective rate of interest. So we write it as IP by P. If we want to talk about definition of our nominal rate of interest, so we'll say nominal rate of interest it is a rate of interest used to represent interest paid more than once each year. So if we have interest paid more than once each year, or sometimes even less than once each year, we can. Okay. So what is this 12.55%? This is our effective rate of interest per annum. I will show you the conversion. Okay. I will show you the conversion in a minute. Let's talk about first nominal rate of interest. 12.55% was nothing but our effective rate of interest, because in 1 year you are getting 12.55 as per 100. That is what interest that you're getting. And these are all equivalent rates. I'll talk about that. We'll be converting one into the other. So nominal rate of interest is just a rate of interest used to represent interest paid more than once each year. Okay. If we are paying interest more than once, then we'll be using IP. So in actuality, we will not use nominal rate of interest for calculation purposes. Here we said 1 plus 0.03. I did it 4 times in a year. That gave me 1 plus 12.5, 1 plus 0.1255. This is what I got, right? Because I compounded it 4 times a year. So what does this mean? This was nothing but our I4 by 4 raised to 4. This gave me 1 plus I. These are equivalent rates. So we can find I4. We can find I using this equation. So if I write a general equation, I'll be saying 1 plus IP by P, the whole raised to P will be equal to 1 plus I. So if I need to find I, all I will do is 1 plus IP by P whole raised to P minus 1. Yes, so 12.55 is an annual effective rate of interest and 3% is quarterly effective rate of interest, and they are equivalent rates. One will give us the same answer as the other. Okay, so one thing you can do is, I gave you so many different values here, right? I'll just simplify it. Okay, what you can do is, if you want to use this 12.55, exact was not 12.55. What was it? I said 1.09. 109.2727 into 1.03. In actuality, it was 12.55081. So our I is 12.550881. If we use this, and we need to find how much interest are we going to earn in 1 quarter, that means it is 1/4 year. So I will have 1 plus I raised to 1/4 year. into 100. So I'll do that. I'll say I'll have 100 into 1 plus I is 12. So 0.125508881 bracket close, raised to, I just want 1/4 here, so 1 divided by 4, that became 103. So in 1/4 the accumulated value is going to be 103. You can do that in half year as well. Half year, this will just become raised to half. So I will just edit this equation. If you want to edit previously written equation, first of all, you can find previously written equation in your calculator by pressing up arrow. You can see these are all the equations that we used. Down arrow will give me lower equations. Okay. And if you press AC, then you will lose, you will not lose any equation. But if you press on button in your calculator, you will use all your previously written equations. I think it stores up to 10 equation. It does not store all the equations. Okay. So here, yeah, I just want to edit this. I'll use my side arrows. And here I will remove that 4, put 2 and press equal to. You can see 106.09. That is the exact same thing we got here. Same thing I can do for 3 quarters. 3 quarters is going to be 3/4 year. I'll say 3 divided by 4, and that becomes 109.2727. It's exactly the same values. So if we are getting exactly the same values with the two different rates, they must be equivalent rates. So this I 12.550881 is equivalent rate to this 3% per quarter. This is per annum basis, this is per quarter basis. That means we can use any one of them. If we use it correctly, then we should get the same answer. So that is why they are called as equivalent rates. That is why we can convert one into the other. That is why we are using this to convert this. And we found our formula for it. We can find I from IP. And we can do the other way around as well. We can find IP as well. So I'll say 1 plus IP by P will be equal to 1 plus I raised to 1 by P. So my IP becomes P into 1 plus I raised to 1 by P minus 1. So this is another formula. As I told you before, we'll have a lot of formulas. So you will have to make a formula sheet so that you have all the formulas kept with you at one single place. We'll be using all of those formulas again and again. I don't want you to turn your pages and search for your formulas. Okay, so you should have all your formulas in one place. I don't expect you to return right away all the formulas. That is not how it works. But if you have all your formulas with you, you can basically use it while you're solving sums, and slowly you will remember all the formulas. This becomes our effective rate of interest. Finding effective rate of interest if nominal is given. Finding nominal rate of interest if effective is given. Again, nominal rate of interest is only used for representation purposes rather than calculation purposes. We will be using IP by P whenever we have calculation to find. Okay. Similarly, okay, I will write a few IP values. We can have I2, we can have I3, I4, we have I12, I1 by 2. These are some values that we see a lot. So I2 is going to be half yearly or 6 monthly. I should write half yearly. Or we also call it as semi-annually. I'll write semi-annually as well. We also call it as biannually. Okay. Then I3 is every 4 months. There is no name for this. I4 is every 3 months. This is very confusing. People get confused between I3 and I4. I3 is every 4 months. I4 is every 3 months. Or we say quarterly. It gets a little bit confusing, but you should just keep a little bit awareness and you will have no problem in it. I12 will have monthly. I half is once every 2 years. Paying interest once every 2 years, and we call it as biannually. Biannually. Okay, so you will find this word sometimes in your question, biannually. Okay, so you have to remember that. Now we have the same thing with D as well. We will have nominal rate of discount. So D2, we will have D4, we will have, sorry, D3, we'll have D4, we'll have D12, we'll have D 1 by 2. We know the names will be the same. I'm just writing it here. We have more than this as well. We have I52. I52, 52 times a year. So if I am doing 52 divisions of a year, that is nothing but 1 week. So we have weekly. And we have I 365. So if I'm paying 365 times a year, that is basically daily. We have such values for D as well. D52, D365. And the formulas are also very similar. We get 1 minus dp by p, the whole raised to p, will be equal to 1 minus d raised to 1. Okay. So similarly, we get d is equals to 1 minus dp by p, the whole raised to p, and our dp will be p times 1 minus of 1 minus d raised to 1 by p. Again, both of these formulas very much important. This is our nominal rate of discount. This is our effective rate of discount per annum. So whenever we write D, whenever we write I, we are talking about effective per annum. Whenever we talk about DP or IP, we are talking about nominal rate of interest, but that is also represented per annum. I'll give you a few values. I'll give you a few relationship. We know how to convert our I into D and D into I. So I'll give you few homework. So I will say I2 is given as 8%. You will have to find D4. So if you want to find D4, first you'll have to convert your I2 into I, then I into D, and then D into D4. Similarly, let's say D12 equals to 9%. Find So using your formulas again from D12 to D, then D to I, then I to I365. This is how you will be converting. Give you more homework. Do this. Definitely do this today so that you remember the concepts very nicely tomorrow, and you can ask me if you get any doubts. So let's say for I is equals to 10%, find D, find I12, find I4, I2, let's say D12, D4, D2. This is homework. Okay, so this much is homework. The formulas that we have just seen, we will have to use them to find these formulas or find these values. So now I think you understand the basics of nominal rate of interest, and nominal rate of discount. Okay, now we'll see how do we use it. We'll see few questions. So here we have 500 is invested in an account that pays nominal rate of interest of 8% per annum, convertible half yearly. So they may not write that it is a nominal rate of interest, but you have to look for two things. First is per annum. It is represented in per annum basis. Second is it is convertible half yearly. Okay. So here they are saying 500 is invested. So present value becomes 500 was invested in a so I was nominal rate of interest is 8% per annum, but it is convertible half yearly, so it is payable 2 times a year, so it becomes I2. Again, we will not say it is I square, we will not say it is I raised to bracket 2, we will say it is I2, or we will say it is I payable 2 times a year. We have to calculate accumulated accumulated amount after 3 years. So n is equals to 3 years. We have two ways of calculating this. First is we can convert our I2 into I. We'll convert that effective rate of interest per annum. We'll do that. So our I will be equal to our 1 plus I2 by 2 the whole raised to 2 minus 1. This is the formula we just wrote. Accordingly, I will have 1.04 raised to 2 minus 1. Okay, so we are finding I, we are getting 8.16%. Using our formula, we got 8.16%. So after we have converted it into I, we can directly use our I. Does not matter when the rate of interest was given, how was it given. We have converted it, now we can use it. So our future value will be equal to our present value into 1 plus I raised to 3. So 1 plus I raised to 3. That ways I'll get 500 to 1.0816 raised to 3. We are getting 632.6595. This is the future value that we are getting. This is one way of solving. The other way is using effective rate of interest per half year. So our I2 was how much? I2 was 8%. So our I2 by 2, that is IP by P, will be 4%. This becomes effective per half year. Okay. So our N now, I will write it as N dash. Our N now is going to be number of half years. So you can actually write it as N as well. N was how much? N was 3 years. That is nothing but 6 half years. I've talked about this. If our rate of interest is in this time unit time, then our time unit will also be in the same unit time. So therefore, my future value will be equal to 500 into 1 plus I2 by 2 the whole raised to 6. Or you can say this was nothing but raised to 2 into 3. And what we have done here is we have replaced our 1 plus I with our 1 plus I2 by 2 raised to 2. I can say 1 plus I can be written as 1 plus IP by P the whole raised to P. We can replace this with this. And that is how we found our formula to convert our IP into I and I into IP. This will give me so we have exactly the same answer. We should have exactly the same answer, right? Yeah. We have 632.6595. We have exactly the same answer. So in both these way, we got our future value. For the one, we converted into effective rate of interest per annum. And for the second, we converted into effective rate of interest per half year. Okay. You just have to make sure that your N is correct. Now for the second one, a payment of rupees 100 is due in 5 years time. See, it is due in 5 years time. That means we are going to get that in 5 years time, or we'll have to give that in 5 years time. So its value is it in after 5 years. Calculate the present value of this payment using an interest rate of 9% per annum convertible monthly. So see again, I12, because it is per annum, 9% per annum. Nominal will always be given in per annum basis, but it is convertible monthly. In actuality, the interest is paid monthly. So again, you have two methods. You can convert it into I, but I prefer doing it as I12 by 12. I12 by 12 will be 9 by 12, that is 3 by 4%, or we'll say 1.75, I think. No, sorry, not 1.0, 0.75%. 0.75% would be 0.0075. Okay. Some people make mistake while converting percentage into decimal. So you just have to make a little bit effort of just keeping that in mind when we are solving it at the beginning, and later on your brain will do all the work. Okay. So here future value is 800. Our N is 5 years. That would be nothing but how many months? So we'll have 60 months. The present value is equals to future value divided by 1 plus I raised to n, or we can say we can replace our 1 plus I by 1 plus I12 by 12, the whole raised to 12 into n. This was our 12 into n, that is our 60 months. So you can directly write it as 60 here, just for less confusion. So here n was in yearly, this n is monthly. What was our future value? 800. 800 upon, we'll have 1.0075 raised to 60. The present value is 510.9597,588. Another homework, that is going to be convert this into I, convert your I-12 into I, and then find the same value, find the same present value using this formula. Okay. You should get the same answer. So we'll end our class here and we will continue this tomorrow. Tomorrow we will start with practicing sums and then we will continue our chapter. So right now we'll end our class here. It is coming 510.97. Okay, did I make some mistake? No, it's correct. Our I-12 is correct. The 9 by 12 would be this much, right? Let me just check. Sometimes I make very silly mistake. Yes, so this would be this much percentage, 0.75%, so 0075. Then where is my above equation? 1 minute, I'll do it again. I'll have 800 divided by 1.0075 raised to 60. Okay, it is 95975. I think यहाँ पे छोटा सा डिफरेंस, जस्ट चेक इट अगेन. ओके, हाँ ठीक है. ओके, 95975. ठीक है, चलो. सो we'll end our class here and we'll meet tomorrow 8:15 a.m. Okay, so I'll start the joining of the class around 8:10 and we'll start our class definitely at 8:15. So, good night.